Well, I think the major problem is that, and it's something that's been ongoing for a long time, is that cities in general have been growing at an exponential rate. And one of the consequences of that is that life is getting faster. So that even though we even recognize some of the problems that we have to face, we have less time in which to deal with them. So less time to make the changes and so on. And yet the changes that we make when we create some new infrastructure and so on are in place for 30, 50, maybe 100, even 200 years in some cases. So, and yet the time between major changes in our society, which used to take maybe hundreds of years, now take 10 to 20 years. We've changed from, computers to IT in 15 to 20 years, and there's going to be other things coming. And cities have this tremendous challenge of having to adapt to that at the same time that we're having this huge population growth and the specter of multiple megacities on the planet. So this is, I think, a huge issue in terms of the people who need to plan cities and need to deal with the kinds of problems, all of the spectrum of problems that we have to deal with, from questions of pollution and the environment and the effects on cities of global warming, questions of finance and risk, of energy and health and pollution. All of these things are all coming together at such a fast rate that we don't have time to deal with them. So I think that's the biggest challenge. What complexity science recognizes is that systems like cities, or like a financial market, or like the weather, like a company, are made up of many different parts, lots and lots of parts, and they interact among themselves. And it is, and out of that interaction come all sorts of interesting things. I mean, and all kinds of things that we try to understand, the kinds of things that I referred to in the answer to the previous question, to do with, the well-being of people, the keeping the infrastructure vibrant and so forth. All of these things are emergent from the interaction among people. But complex systems thinks of it in a systemic way, thinks of the system as a whole, and recognizes something critically important, that the behavior of the whole, the behavior of the entire system, is not just the sum of the behavior of all the individual components. So, for example, some simple example would be, a city is not just the sum of all the people in it. It's much more than that. It's not only all of the infrastructure and so on, but even if you add in all the infrastructure, the sum of all the buildings and sum of all the roads, it's still not that. It's more than that. It's all of that together creating something new. So, and a complex system has this very strong characteristic, that there are these emergent properties coming from the interaction among its components. It also has the property that out of that come modular pieces, so that if we think of a city as part of it being its individuals, those individuals are not independent individuals. There are families, there are jobs, and so on. So it's seeing it much more in this big picture way, and recognizing that as part of it, there is an ongoing dynamic, that it's not a static situation. It's continuously evolving and adapting to changes. And so it's often misleading, and I would say even dangerous, to start thinking of cities as in terms of these individual components, like saying, okay, we're going to deal with the transport in the system, or we're going to deal with the problems of education in the city. To recognize that all these things are interconnected, because if you only deal with the transportation, you are going to have inevitably effects on everything else in the city. So, so in thinking, for example, of the possible advent of driverless cars, well, that's going to have profound effects, not just on the transportation system, which is the way one might naively think about it, how you're going to change the roads and how you're going to change the system of people getting to those cars and so on. Parking becomes a different issue and so on. So it has all of that. But it's also going to affect the lives of people and the social behavior of people, and that social behavior of the people will start to affect questions about how much energy they use, what they're going to demand of the education system. So all of these things are highly interlinked, and a complex adaptive system is the sum of all those things. So it's a very different way than has traditionally been used to think about systems like cities. Well, I think no, it's a wonderful thing to do, and it's a tremendous group of people that both in terms of the speakers and the participants. I mean, it's to start the process, or to facilitate the process of interaction, of the enhancement of networking, of people listening to new ideas, to different ways of attacking problems, how one city has solved this problem, another one that problem, and so on. I think all of that is tremendous. From my own view, the one thing that is lacking is the bigger picture again. The more discussion about the commonality of cities, and indeed, as part of that, I think we need to encourage more and more science to be involved, so that we have a serious dialogue and a serious collaboration between scientists and academics in general, and practitioners and politicians who actually have to deal with the problems, in the trenches, so to speak. And this is a great place for bringing that to effect. And some of it is taking place, but I'd like to see much more. But in general, it's, there's no question that the problem of the 21st century, the problem of sustainability of the planet, the problem for the future of humanity, for the question of the quality and standard of living we want all human beings to have, that is all resides in the city, that all resides in the process of urbanization and the dynamics and organization of cities, and having events like this which bring people together that are heavily involved in that, I think is critical and extremely important, and I'm sure all kinds of good things will come out of it.